What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, we're going to be taking a look at a title called The First Men. We took a look at this game, both when it was a demo quite a while ago, and then we looked at the game again when it came out on Steam Early Access. And as you've no doubt seen from the title, I think this is actually quite the curious little game, especially given the fact that they recently kind of overhauled the entire game and they completely and totally restructured it. So none of my coverage from the past is relevant anymore. And that kind of situation makes my ass itch. Like, I don't like having videos up that are outdated where, like, somebody goes to the Steam storefront and they're like, I want to look at this game. They Google it. My video comes up. They jump on it and they're like, wait a minute, this looks completely different than what's on the storefront page. What's going on there? So we're going to recover the game today. I've played it for about 6 hours in my free time, and I had a pretty good time with it. If you've never seen The First Men before, this is a very unique colony survival game that's made by a team in Turkey. I think it has a really fantastic art style, and I think it's playing with some cool ideas, largely because the game is not concerned with being RimWorld. Now, if you've been anywhere kind of in the gaming space ever since RimWorld came out, you will know that every single colony builder game kind of wants to be RimWorld nowadays due to, like, the ridiculous success that that game had. Justified, but also just hugely viral success. In the case of The First Men, it is one of the only colony survival games I've seen on Steam that doesn't seem to care at all about treading in RimWorld's shadow. This is a game that's kind of going its own way, and it's going in a bit of a storybook objective-based direction. So what we're playing right now is effectively the Turkic creation story. There are a number of campaigns in this game, and all of them have different goals. Sometimes you're trying to win over a realm and defeat a god. Sometimes you're just trying to live and survive long enough to build a boat and leave whatever island you're on. There's like 6 campaigns. They all have kind of something different going on. The maps are not randomized. They seem to be more or less the same every single time you play on through, but we're going to check out the game today for about 25 minutes and see if it's something that strikes your fancy. Now, today is going to be a little bit special. I don't normally make highly edited videos. Normally, I make videos that are just a straight shot of me playing the game, because when I first started my YouTube channel, I found it super annoying that all of the reviews and whatnot were, like, highly edited. Like, I wanted to see the game being played so I could figure out if I wanted to buy it or not. I didn't want a bunch of wordy prose. I didn't want a bunch of editing and jokes and stuff like that. I just wanted to see the gameplay with somebody talking over the top of it, so that's the kind of content that I decided to make. But in the case of today's video, The First Men suffers from, like, some pacing issues, and so there's going to be a lot of editing here today, largely because things don't really happen in a timely fashion in this game, especially for the, like, first 2 hours of a playthrough. It can be very slow and just you kind of waiting for things to happen. So let's dive on in. Oh, I've got like a 5th guy right here. Good. What is this 5th guy doing? 5th guy is apparently just wandering around. I'll make him into a gatherer. So what have I done while I was talking to all of you? Well, I set up a gatherer's camp. And in this game, you want to think of your villagers. This game is much less personal than a lot of other colony survival games. What I like to do is I like to think about all of my characters that are not warriors as NPCs, and all of my characters that are warriors as player characters. That is to say, the people doing the little jobs around town, they don't really matter, except for making sure that all your meters are full and that you have all the food and all the resources and things that you need in order to survive. And I think about them as just being little automatons that just repeatedly do jobs over and over and over again. Their specialization, the way that they level up, the way that we develop them, it doesn't really matter. But when it comes to your warriors, those are the guys that you really want to pay attention to every single thing that you buy. But before I get too much further on into the video, if you wanted to get The First Men, it's in early access right now. They just did the first wave of an overhaul patch that completely changes the structure of the game. In my opinion, universally for the better. There are still some flaws with this title, but the early access is available down below in the description. And on top of that, you'll also be able to find a link to my Discord and my Twitch stream, just in case you wanted to hang out live. So this is an interesting colony survival game. Basically, it functions around buildings and people. Buildings all have a job associated with them. If you click on a person and you put them in a building, they become that job. As they do that job over and over and over again, they will produce items that are then used by other people, almost in kind of like a production conveyor belt sense, which is why I like to think of all my little guys as conveyor belts. They have two little things that they'll develop here. Sometimes you can have like 10 things in here. It just sort of depends. They have their personal development, which is their development as a human being, whether they are lustful, whether they are wrathful, whether they are kind, so on and so forth. And each of those perks will impart some kind of bonus to the character, and everything they do in the game increases their personal development. This game is not like real life where most people stop developing as a human being, sometimes around potty training. This game, they develop their entire lives. Right here, we've got their class level as well, which she has actually leveled up, and the class level is kind of interesting in this game, and the reason why it's interesting is that when your characters level up their class in this game, they do get better at the job that they do. They get faster at it by about 5%. So like a level 5 gatherer gathers about 25% faster than everybody else. However, every time somebody levels up a job, you will get a decorative item, or you will get an emplacement, or some kind of thing you can put in your city that will either beautify the place, make it nicer, make people happier, give you a better source of food, so on and so forth. And I found this idea to be compelling. So this gatherer right here has leveled up. We will take this gatherer and we will plant a cornfield right there. What the cornfield does, the game doesn't do a super good job at telling you what things do, but the cornfield does exactly what you expect it to do. It produces corn. So every couple days, which you can see up here, we have moons and we kind of have like years. Every X amount of time, the corn will grow, and instead of having to gather from this roughage patch over here, my gatherers will gather from the corn, and it's got like a 4 times output. Some things will actually give you special items. So there's sugar beets, which will give you like sugar. There's strawberries or like cherries that will give you strawberries and cherries. And then when this little guy down here, the cook, levels up, normally you get to pick like some meals that they will just give you for free. So in this case, we can get wild nuts. This gives somebody a buff if you feed it to them, like a potion. We can get a stuffed meal, which is what we're already producing over here, which is a basic meal that just fills people's stamina meter up down here at the bottom. Every time they do their jobs, their stamina goes down. Or we can get mushroom surprise, which gives people a free level up of their personal development. If we had any special materials that have been gathered from these fields over here, it would be random, but you might be able to make like a specialized magic meal that you can't get any other way. And these little secrets and intricacies and random interactions between the various classes really sort of captured me as an idea. So when the cook levels up, I'm going to go ahead and take Mushroom Surprise right there. The Mushroom Surprise is going to be inside your consumables menu up here at the top. I'm going to feed it to actually, I'm going to hold on to those until I have warriors. I don't have any warriors right now. The personal development of warriors feels much more important to me than the personal development of everybody else. This guy is chopping wood down here. This person is preparing meals from the vegetables that these guys are gathering from out in the wild. And then this guy right here is a nursemaid. Every time the nursemaid levels up, you get another character and a baby is produced. But they're born at like 7 years old, and then you send them straight to work in the mines because obviously that's what you do with a 7-year-old. Once you have everybody assigned to jobs, they'll pretty much do those jobs forever. People can multi-class, so for example, if I got tired of someone being a nursemaid, I could send them to be a gatherer, and they would level up those jobs individually. But one thing to keep in mind is that this game functions on a realistic time scale. So what that means is if you mouse over this spot right here inside the UI, these little characters have a life cycle. They will be a child, then they will be an adult, then they will get senile and old, and they will die. And so you're constantly kind of paying attention and trying to replace people as you go throughout your day-to-day. The good news is that, like, these characters, they live for, like, 3-4 hours on a playthrough, so you don't really have to worry about them dying altogether that frequently. Hey, we have our first child being born. Now, as you get further into the game, you will be able to get specialized children based on special resources that you have. You know how I mentioned when these guys level up, you get special meals based on what you've gathered from the environment? Kids work the same way in this game. You can actually get specialized kids that are really good at certain jobs or really good at fighting or something like that based on these little points right here, these faction points. We'll talk about those in just a second. For right now, we're just going to take a male child because I need to start training a warrior. And so out comes Seliph. There he is right there. I'm going to go to the build menu real fast, and we are going to make a training dummy. And we will put this training dummy right over there. And then we're going to take Seliph, and we're going to tell Seliph to go ahead. Seliph, no! That's not what you're supposed to be doing right now. Anyways, Seliph is going to stand over here, and Seliph is going to punch the training dummy until he levels up his adventurer skill, at which point we will also give him a class of warrior. As of right now, I think there's like protectors, archers, slayers, healers, and a couple others, but I haven't seen everything just yet in the 6 hours that I've played. But now we've got a warrior training, and we're going to need some more children, so I'll step back with you once they get here. But we've got another cook over here. We'll go mushroom surprise for the cook. A bunch of people over here. Personal development is leveled up. Now, personal development is kind of interesting because personal development is not like your class development. Personal development is going to give you increases to your attributes. It's going to give you increases to your stats. As far as I can tell, these stats don't seem to dictate how good you are at any jobs or anything else right now. Instead, these traits right here, like heart and mind and body, they seem to dictate your chances of getting more character traits that follow in the footsteps of that attribute later on. And then, once you take these right here, you'll note that it says +1 to influence, +1 to unity, +1 to influence. There's a reason for that, and the reason is your city gets this thing called faction points. It's your prosperity, your industry, your influence, your unity, and your amenities, or like your creature comforts. These points right here go up every single time a person with a trait of that color completes a task, and then when events happen, or when kids are born, or when various objects are being manufactured, you can then spend these points in sort of a conceptual way to modify those items or modify those children being born to make them better in accordance with the color that you spent in order to get those bonuses. So hopefully that was somewhat clear. It'll make sense if you play the game for a little while. We'll make this guy honest. That means we'll get more movement speed, we'll get more stamina, and we will also get +1 to our unity every time he does a task. This guy has legacies because he's the founder of our colony. Legacies are basically perks that are going to last the rest of the game that affect everybody else in the colony. So we've got Enlightenment's Path over here. It looks like everybody's personality development goes twice as fast. We've got extra hands over here. This will give us a free character right now. We've got Swift as the Wind. This will make it so that everybody in our colony runs faster. I'll probably make them level up quicker because that seems really good. I will take, what does this one do? The characters get a +10 boost to movement speed, doubles the vision radius. I'll take that. That's good for scouting. And then cooks have a 10% chance to produce an extra meal. Maximum stamina on everybody goes up by 10. It looks like solo. I'm going to go for the 10 stamina on everybody because that's hugely useful for warriors. If you're warriors in this game, if they run out of stamina, they're basically dead in the water and they're just going to get beat to death because they get nerfed super hard with regards to their damage. We're going to make this first kid right here a protector. I found that the protector is a really good class. Oh, that's not the kid. That was the random cook over here. Oh, well, apparently she's a protector now, but I didn't have any plans on making her fight anyways, so no biggie, no harm, no foul. It looks like my woodcutter's good to go. Interestingly enough, when the woodcutter levels up, you get to plant a tree. That tree is of higher tier than the trees you just find in the environment, and so you'll get special resources out of the trees that they get to plant and develop as they level up. I kind of like that interactivity to it. Oh, good, we've got green points now. We'll make this guy resilient. What else do we have? Personal development over here. We'll make this guy cynical because that'll develop amenities, and then this person, we will give them I think we'll give them erudition because that's going to generate blue points for us, I think. And you kind of want to be able to generate an even amount of all points. It gives your society a little bit of adaptability when it comes to choosing your outputs. So Seliph has finally leveled up. We're going to take Seliph and we're going to make him a protector, which is going to give him a huge amount of HP, but he's not going to be super good at fighting. He's just going to be really good at getting punched in the face. He's also going to get some abilities. Combat in this game is active. Like, as you're fighting, you click and you choose what abilities you want him to use when they're killing stuff, and you will want to pay attention to that because some of the abilities can be game changers, like stunning enemies for long periods of time, casting big massive heals on your companions, things of that nature, but he's developing for right now. The problem is he's kind of like empty-handed at the moment, and we don't want him to be empty-handed. So I'm going to put a weapon crafter's bench over here, and just briefly, I'm going to reassign him to forge a weapon for himself. Their little outfits change when they change jobs, too, in case you didn't notice. Like the gatherers will have a little gatherer outfit. The cook has a little cook outfit. Woodcutter has a little woodcutter outfit. They're all distinct. And how does weapon crafting work in this game? Well, it works exactly the same as every other job. Whenever you level up weapon carving, you get to pick a weapon, and those weapons tend to have attributes that favor certain classes. So healers will use healer kits, protectors will use big clubs, slayers will use big daggers and knives. There are also ranged weapons and stuff. I haven't gotten that far yet, but we've got a wood bludgeon over here. We've got a sturdy club, but it'll cost us 7 wood. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So these two right here are just defaults that we would get when this guy levels up. You see how this one costs resources, though? If there's a resource listed underneath, this is a special option that will only come up if you have those things inside of your stockpile. Now, wood is incredibly common, but I've had a few interesting things come out of the weapon crafting once I get access to, like, bones and wolf skulls and things of that nature. We'll go ahead and make a sturdy club. He's going to keep on crafting right here, and then we will make a weapon for Italia, who's the new kid. We've taken both these children, and we're training them to be our initial warriors because we are going to get attacked. I have to make that clear. You do have to defend your settlement from time to time. All of our weapons have been crafted, so we need to give that one to Italia, and she will now have a big, huge, child-sized knife, because this is how you run a successful society full of children. You set them to work forging their own weapons to bludgeon enemies for your colony's survival. I'm still waiting on one more person to come out. Like, I'm waiting to produce more villagers, and then I'll show you some more advanced gameplay here. There's our next child, so the only question is to ask ourselves what we want them to do. I usually alternate between male and female. It doesn't really matter. Nobody breeds in this game, so the male to female balance is irrelevant. Babies spawn out of the ether because your nursemaid has leveled up inside the nursemaidery. But as far as jobs go, we do have a pit oven. I feel like our food is largely okay right now. Our wood is kind of okay. In the interest of getting this thing moving forward, I would say that where we probably want to go next is either like a gardener's hut, or we're probably going to want to go with a carpentry workshop just to get this thing up and off the ground. So let's go ahead and make a carpentry workshop. What's going to happen with the carpentry workshop is this little guy's going to learn how to work a lathe, because that's what children are good for. Listen, all right, children are perfectly welcome inside the wood shop. There are certain techniques that can only be accomplished by little fingers in jeopardy of danger, all right? That's it. So look, rusty saw, no problem. He's 7 years old. He's basically a man. But he's going to take the wood that we're producing from our wood chopper, and he is going to produce planks out of it. During this time period, we will want to keep a very careful eye on sort of the balance of food and the balance of wood, because this may get in the way of our ability to develop out our colony long term by not being able to produce enough wood to actually build things. So there's a decent chance that I may have to get another wood chopper with my next person that the nursemaid spits out. Now, these are the level ups you really want to pay attention to. So when your warriors, they level up their adventurer level, they will get these perks right here, which have a fist on them. You're going to want to read these carefully because these tend to coincide with the class that they're playing. So for our protector right here, we want him to be body buffed because that's going to increase his block chance, as you can see on his little character card right there. But for this character over here, we would want to focus on anything that increases her damage like crazy. Another child born. This one's going to go work straight at the workshop. That's pretty much all there is to it. As far as harvesting goes, yeah, let's get another woodcutter's hut over here so that they can work individually at each location, and we'll slot them on in there. So here's what I was talking about with developing your kids. It looks like we can spend 100 points of influence over here, and that is, I think, our, influence. Okay, so it's literally influence. We can spend 100 points of influence, and, like, what exactly will that do? Well, these kids right here have way better stats because influence is associated with the stat of heart. They have much higher heart starting out, and they'll have much higher starting stamina, and usually they'll have much higher starting endurance, which is their HP as well, when you spend points on them in order to produce them. So this guy over here seems to by far be the best when it comes to the dice roll that he got. 71 stamina is pretty dope. That's a pretty rad amount of stamina. Our food has begun to fall off a little bit as our population gets larger, so we're going to need to make ourselves another pit oven over here. One fun feature of this game that I do like, Adrian, go cook dinner, bro. One fun feature of this game that I do like is that the carpenter over here, whenever he levels up, because all he does is produce planks, he just produces little decorative items like the stool that guy is sitting on to eat, and it helps your city feel more alive. Like, he'll produce little tables, he'll produce little, like, napping huts and things like that. They don't really all have very much function, but they do make the place look a little bit more alive. Now that our society's grown a little bit, what is the ultimate point of this game? Well, that brings us back to the idea of these objectives. Like, right now we're playing through the Turkic creation story, so we need to take a party of adventurers and we need to travel south to Odd. It's very easy to do that. You add people to the party on this little tab right here, and then you just draft them. And then when you grab them over here, you just click where you want them to go. And that's pretty much all that there is to it. We'll travel south a little bit. I do have the game on Speedy Boy mode right now, so don't think that the game has kind of like fast animations like this all the time. But scouting the area is probably a really good idea, and I've found that the map to this game is actually shockingly expansive. It's enormous, like at least in this campaign. The road to the south, which it told us to follow to get to Odd, is full of wolves, unfortunately. So what I'd like to do here is we want to keep aggro careful. We only want to pull one at a time, and then we will put them on the wolf, and this is what combat looks like. So over here, he's got whack, which he can use to smack an enemy in the face. She has stab, which apparently does a whole bunch of endurance damage, but she also has rage. And rage, it looks like, is a buff that increases her damage dealing power. So if I make her cast rage right there, her next couple attacks will be like the smackers, yeah, for 18 damage. And so we can grab these items right here. No one will come out and collect these. Like I said, this game is not like RimWorld. Do not assume that it's going to be like RimWorld or you're going to be disappointed. With your party selected, you pick up the items that any critter drops, and they will just automatically add them to your stockpile. So there's the bones, there's the wolf claw, and I think we grabbed something else, but I can't say it right now. Maybe it was a consumable? No, not a consumable. Well, I don't know what the third thing was then. Maybe we just got multiples of something in here. No, it doesn't look like that either. Well, listen, I don't know what we did, but now that we have these resources in here, when we go to craft items, we will sometimes get rare objects on level up that we can only make if we have like 5 bones on us or something like that. After fighting, your little adventuring party can encamp. That means they go to sleep, and they will get all of their HP back very slowly. The only downside is it eats up their stamina very quickly. Oddly enough, sleeping by a campfire makes your stamina go down as you're healing. Be very careful with your adventurers. When they get to low stamina like this, they fight poorly. Especially when it gets down to 0 negatives, they start to fight really badly. Like, they lose all their attack power, their attack speed goes down. You're basically sending them on a suicide mission if they have no stamina, so very carefully monitor that. We can draft everybody back up again, and I actually think I'll disband the group because they got to go back and eat. And so we need to get their stamina meters in line with one another before we can have a long adventure. But I did want to show you what combat looks like down there. Had we a healer, we could also control who gets healed and who's getting buffs and stuff like that along the way. I think we're going to need another gatherer because we don't have very many vegetables. And I believe it's creating a stopgap. The good news is we just had a kid born, so we can bring them over here. And I'm just going to assign them to be a gatherer. That's it. They're going to jump on in here and start gathering some things to develop out our society. I do have a couple of thoughts about this current build. By and large, I think that the First Men is a very interesting colony survival game. In fact, it's one I've got my eyebrow raised about. Like, I'm very interested in it. But this is the first patch of them restructuring the game. Now, on that note, I think that the restructured version of this game still has a bit of a learning curve to it, and there are still like some hanging threads, and there are some certain aspects of the game that are not utilized yet, which make it seem like maybe the stats are pointless, or maybe some of the amenity points or something like that are pointless outside of level ups, and that would be true. But I think the current version of the First Men is much more structured, much more lean, much more gamified, and much more interesting than the previous version, which was a very, very complicated game that had a lot of moving parts that was very difficult to digest. A few things in terms of feedback for the developers that I noticed while I was playing through the game. As your population grows, oh, there you go. There's one of the special foods we can get right there if we have some corn on us. Cool. One of the things that I've noticed is once your colony has like 40 people in it and you start to have like a really big city, the level ups become very clicky and very frequent, which makes them feel less special. There's going to have to be some way to figure out like a life planning type deal to where once your city hits a certain size, people kind of develop themselves, because what I found was 5 hours into a run is that I was constantly over here clicking and dealing with like 5 and 6 level ups at a time, and at a certain point it made them feel less special because I was just clicking whatever gave me the most stamina every single time over and over and over again. So either the level ups need to become less frequent and more consequential, or there needs to be some kind of automative process once you get further on into the game that makes the characters develop themselves in a direction that you sort of set in their early life cycle. Because the level ups right now become far too frequent once your society grows a little bit. Another thing that I would note is that it doesn't feel like, so the last time I played these games, these stats right here tied into like what your characters were good at. So people that had heart were really good adventurers, people that had mind were really good crafters, people were body were good gatherers, so on and so forth. Doesn't seem to work like that anymore. And I think there's an opportunity here to tie the stats into overall effectiveness without class locking people. And so I'd like to see these utilized a little bit more, either in terms of helping your characters do jobs even more effectively than they already do based on their class level, and also it'd be interesting to see if there was little RimWorld style events. I know I just spent 30 minutes praising this game for not being RimWorld, but one thing I think they could fold in is little RimWorld style events that pop up where there's dialogue and like events like a foreign king comes and visits you. If you have someone that has, you know, level 10 in soul, you can automatically resolve the event in a positive way. Or if you have 150 amenity points and you have 150 prosperity points, you can spend those to do a little bit of diplomatic braggadocio to convince the other king that, like, your society is rad and you want to be friends with us. That's what I mean, is that, like, there's a lot of systems right now that don't feel fully integrated into the overall gameplay loop, and I'm guessing that's because the game is mid-restructure right now. But those are the kinds of things that I was looking for, like a way to make the stats matter and a way to make these points matter over here, except for like manufacturing special objects. On top of that, the current build, I think, suffers from a little bit of a pacing issue. You're going to spend a lot of time just passing time in this game. Like this video right here, I edited quite a bit when I was playing around with it, largely because stuff doesn't happen other than level ups at a rapid rate. You're more or less locked by how fast you can spit out kids for like how fast you can develop your society. So my suggestion would be, if that pacing bothers you, have multiple people on nursemating so you're putting out lots and lots of kids. But other than that, though, there's a lot of downtime, and I think those events that I previously talked about would help with that a lot as well. And so the First Men, I think the game is pretty cool. I'm excited to see where the restructure goes. I don't think I would recommend a buy just yet. I know that's probably not what the developers want to hear, but that's largely because, like, I'm consumer-facing, and so since you're in the middle of a restructure right now and like a rebuild of the game, I think that's going really well, and I like the new vision of the game. I think it's way better than the previous vision of the game, but it's hard to recommend mid-restructure. I would say put this one on your wish list. Keep an eye on it, because this is a very unique, very curious, very interesting, very playful sort of idea that comes out of left field with colony survival elements that you're not going to see in any other game. But for right now, they're in the middle of the process. So give it some time, let them cook and see where that goes before you start throwing money at them. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie games every single day so that you don't have to. Today up on the chopping block, we were fooling around with a game called The First Men. I like this game. Don't get it twisted. I think they're going in a good direction, and I've always had like this feeling that every single colony survival game is either inspired by like Prison Architect or it's inspired by RimWorld. And, like, you can't really feel too much difference aside from some gag or gimmick there. What I like about this game is that it does not care what the popular colony survival games is. It's doing something weird, and it's doing something novel, and it's doing something interesting. So I wanted to make a video that lets you guys know that, hey, like, they're kind of like rebuilding this game right now, and the rebuild is looking really promising. It's not there yet, but I like what they've cobbled together here without totally trying to ape some other game. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie games every single day so that you don't have to. Today up on the chopping block, we were fooling around with a title called The First Men. Tomorrow, it will very likely be something else. Thank you for spending your time with me. I will be back tomorrow with a new game for you to peruse, but for now, it's time for me to go. Bye, folks.